Title: The Healer and the Mysterious Illness. Once upon a time, there was a person named the head of the Department of Medicine, known for their exceptional skills in medicine. This individual was widely recognized and utilized in both public and private matters. One July 7th, all the doctors, including those from the head of the Department of Medicine's family, as well as other doctors and their subordinates, gathered at the medical quarters to celebrate. The large hall was filled with long mats, and they all took their seats, bringing various foods and drinks to enjoy. At that time, a woman around 50 years old, who was not of the lowest social status but dressed in a plain yellow robe and shabby hakama, with a face resembling a dull blue cloth and her entire body swollen, was brought before the hall by a lower class servant. The head of the Department of Medicine asked, "Who is that person?" And upon hearing the answer, the swollen woman said, "I have been afflicted with this swelling for 5 or 6 years. I thought of asking someone at the capital, but being from a rural area, I felt I couldn't trouble the high-ranking officials. Now that you are gathered here, I thought I might show myself and ask for your help. I hope you will look at me and give me instructions on how to treat this." The head of the Department of Medicine and the others, upon hearing this, thought she was a wise woman and that her situation was genuine. The head instructed, "Let the experts among you treat her. This seems like a simple case." He then called a reputable doctor to examine her. The doctor examined her and said, "This is surely a simple case." When asked what could cure her, the doctor said, 1. Following this, a white, grain-like substance was brought out. The doctor took it and began applying it to her, and as it extended, it was wrapped around a pillar in the hall. Gradually, as the wrapping continued, the woman's face and swelling improved, and her complexion returned to normal. By the time the wrapping reached 7 or 8 fathoms around the pillar, the woman's face was completely restored to its original state. The head of the Department of Medicine and other doctors were amazed and praised the successful treatment enthusiastically. Later, the woman asked, "What should be done next?" The doctor responded, "You should use a decoction of koik seeds. No other treatment is necessary at this point." And then she was sent on her way. In the past, it is said that even among lower ranked doctors, there were those who could cure such diseases, and that this story has been passed down as a remarkable tale. Title: The Female Physician and the Escaped Illness. Once upon a time, there was a highly skilled physician known as the head of the Department of Medicine. Because of their unparalleled expertise, everyone sought their services. One day, a richly dressed woman arrived in an elegant carriage. When the head of the Department of Medicine saw the carriage, they inquired, "Whose carriage is this?" However, no answer was given, and the carriage was simply brought inside. The neck yoke of the carriage was hung on a beam, and the entourage waited outside the gate. At that time, the head of the Department of Medicine approached the carriage and asked, "Who is this person, and what is the matter?" Inside the carriage, the occupant did not answer, but instead requested to be escorted to a secluded area to prepare for the visit. The head, being a kind and accommodating person, quickly arranged a private space with a screen and tatami mats for the visitor. Upon entering, the head of the Department of Medicine saw a woman about 30 years old, with an impeccably groomed appearance. She had no signs of shame and faced the head with calm and tranquility, like a close relative. Seeing this, the head thought it was unusual and suspected the woman might be connected to something significant. He approached her, noting that she had a strikingly delicate and withered appearance, but he asked her about her condition. The woman explained, "I have no shame in revealing my condition because I value my life more than any personal embarrassment. I came here hoping for your assistance, whether it means living or dying. I leave my fate in your hands." And she began to weep uncontrollably. The head, moved by her plight, asked for details. The woman showed her inner thighs, which were as white as snow but slightly swollen. The swelling appeared somewhat unusual, so the head examined it closely and found threads that were causing the swelling. Recognizing the urgency, he decided to take action, as the condition was severe. From that day, he treated her with the utmost care, avoiding contact with others and personally managing her treatment. After about 7 days of care, the woman's condition improved significantly. The head, relieved and pleased, decided to continue her treatment for a little longer and stopped using cold remedies, instead applying a medicinal paste several times a day. The woman, still in distress, asked to be sent back to her place of residence, but the head was hesitant. He planned to keep her for a few more days to ensure she was fully recovered. However, one evening, the woman's attendant, dressed in light cotton garments, along with the woman's young maid, suddenly fled with the woman's belongings. The head, unaware of their departure, prepared a meal to bring to them, but found the place empty upon his arrival. He discovered that the carriage, combs, and other items were left behind, but the woman and her maid had vanished, leaving behind only the thin cotton garment. The head felt deep regret and sorrow, thinking that the woman had escaped in her state of illness, and he was left to ponder over her departure. He was heartbroken and troubled by the loss, lamenting the missed opportunity to help her fully. The story concludes with the head lamenting the mysterious and clever woman who had managed to leave without revealing her true identity. Her story became a topic of discussion and admiration among the people, leaving an impression of her as an exceptionally wise and enigmatic individual. Title: The Serpent Bride and the Physician's Cure. Once upon a time, in the district of Magari in the province of Kawachi, there lived a wealthy family, despite their humble origins. Among them was a young girl. In April, while the girl was gathering mulberry leaves for silkworms, she climbed a large mulberry tree. As she picked leaves, she noticed a giant serpent coiled around the base of the tree, which was located along the road. Passers-by saw the serpent and reported it, causing the girl to look down and confirm the serpent's presence. Terrified and confused, the girl descended from the tree, and the serpent immediately coiled around her as if to marry her. Overwhelmed, she fell to the ground, appearing as if she had died. Her parents, seeing her distress, called for a physician to help. The physician, known for their exceptional skills in the region, was summoned and examined the situation. Meanwhile, the serpent remained entangled with the girl. The physician advised, first, place the girl and the serpent together in the same bed and immediately take them home, placing them in the garden. Following this guidance, they transported the girl and the serpent to their home and placed them in the garden. Next, the physician instructed them to burn 3 bundles of millet stalks, each bundle being 3 feet long. They prepared a concoction by boiling the stalks in water until 3 measures of liquid were reduced to 2. They then added 10 handfuls of boar bristles to the mixture and applied it to the girl's head while suspending her feet. The liquid was also poured into the girl's mouth. As soon as 1 measure was administered, the serpent detached from the girl. The serpent was then killed and discarded. After the serpent was expelled, its offspring emerged, resembling tadpoles, and the mixture of boar bristles and serpent offspring was collected, totaling about 5 measures. Once the serpent's progeny were completely expelled, the girl regained her senses and reported that she felt as if she had been dreaming. Her parents, overjoyed, asked her about the experience. She explained that she could remember nothing clearly and felt as though it was a dream. Thanks to the physician's treatment, the girl's life was spared. However, 3 years later, she again married a serpent and eventually died. It was believed that this was due to a karmic consequence from a previous life, and no further treatment was pursued. Thus, the story highlights the remarkable skill of the physician and the extraordinary nature of the treatment, which became legendary. Title: The Tale of the Indian Monk Chōshū and the Medicine of the Cinnamon Tree. Once upon a time, during the era of Emperor Tenryaku, there arrived a monk from the land of Shindan, China. His name was Chōshū, and he was known for his medical expertise. He came to Chinsai, Kyushu, and since he had no intention of returning, was summoned to Kyoto and appointed as a physician. As he was a highly respected monk, he was made a temple priest at the Hojo Temple and served the noble families. Over time, Chōshū became familiar with the area and its people. There was a prominent residence known as the Palace of the Great Laurel Tree, located in the western part of the city, near the Five-Jo and the Nishi-Doin areas. This residence was named after the large laurel tree that stood in front of it. One day, Chōshū visited the residence and, while speaking with people there, looked up at the laurel tree and remarked, There is a medicinal substance called Katsurago Koro, cinnamon heart in this country, but it seems that people do not recognize it. I will procure some. He then instructed a young boy to climb the tree and cut down certain branches. The boy complied, and Chōshū took the parts containing the medicinal substance and brought them to the palace. After preparing a small quantity of the medicine, Chōshū noted that the cinnamon heart from China was superior in quality, and he lamented, "Although this country also has cinnamon heart, there are no knowledgeable physicians to recognize it, which is truly regrettable." Thus, despite the availability of cinnamon heart in Japan, it was not utilized due to the lack of knowledgeable individuals. Chōshū ultimately decided not to share this knowledge with others and stopped his efforts. In the end, Chōshū produced medicine and presented it publicly. The story of his actions and the medicinal properties of the cinnamon tree has been passed down through the ages. Title: The Tale of the Physician Chūmei and the Mystery of the Comatose Man. Once upon a time, during the reign of Emperor Go-Suzaku, when the court was staying at the palace during the summer to escape the heat, there was a period of idleness. One of the attendants suggested, "Since we have nothing to do, how about sending someone to get some sake and snacks?" Hearing this, the other attendants agreed and said, "It's an excellent idea. We should send someone quickly." Consequently, the attendant called for a servant and dispatched him to fetch the items. The servant hurried south, and as he was traveling, a sudden rainstorm started. The attendants in the palace, meanwhile, continued to chat and wait in the corridor. When the rain stopped and the sky cleared, they waited for the servant to return with the sake. As time passed and the servant did not return even by sunset, they decided to return to the palace. The attendant who had sent the servant was quite distressed and thought to himself, "This is truly strange. Something must have happened. Perhaps the servant died on the road, or he might have fallen seriously ill." He spent the entire night worrying about the situation. The next morning, he hurried to the house of the servant to inquire about what had happened. The family told him, "The servant did return yesterday, but he seemed to be in a death-like state and lay there without speaking a word." The attendant went closer and indeed saw that the servant appeared to be lifeless. Despite asking questions, there was no response, and the servant remained motionless. Seeing this strange condition, the attendant went to the physician Chūmei, also known as Tamba Chūmei, and asked what could be the cause of this situation. Chūmei replied, "I do not know. This is a difficult case. However, you should gather a large amount of ash and bury the man in it for a while. Then observe the situation." Following Chūmei's advice, the attendant collected a substantial amount of ash and buried the man in it. After 1 or 2 hours, when he checked, he found that the ash had moved. Upon digging, the man had returned to his usual state and seemed to have recovered. The attendant asked the man what had happened, and the man explained, "Yesterday, while I was on the corridor of the 8 provinces, I saw a golden hand glittering in the darkness during a sudden thunderstorm and rain at the west side of the Shinsei garden. I was overwhelmed by the sight and lost consciousness. Consciousness. I must have seemed to lie down in the dark. I only vaguely remember coming to the palace, and after that, I do not recall anything." The attendant, upon hearing this, was amazed and went back to Chūmei to report, "The man, as you instructed, was buried in the ash and soon returned to his senses, and his account matches what he said." Chūmei, smiling wryly, responded, "Indeed, such unusual occurrences are often due to the unique nature of the person's condition, rather than any other remedy." The attendant then shared this story with others, who praised Chūmei's skills. The story spread, and people continued to admire Chūmei. It is said that this was not the only remarkable instance. Chūmei was known for his extraordinary medical expertise, thus the story has been passed down.